what I think would make this podcast better?
What's that?
If it were a musical. I reckon if we sing our way through this review,
go for it.
Everyone will love it.
Whoa. When did Todd Phillips get here?
Oh, when the saints go marching in. Hello, Stab in the Dark. Yes, we're here. Mike, Dave, Joe, and we are reviewing Joker 2.
Folie à deux.
As I said, Joker 2. So, this is gonna... I feel like we all might have some differing opinions on this. There's a lot of opinions. This film actually, off the bat, kind of annoys me. It irritates me.
Well, you're sickened...
I'm sickened to my stomach.
By its existence.
Wow, okay, I can't wait to hear about that.
It just annoys the hell out of me. So I'm going to go over to Dave, first of all. I think he's a little bit less repulsed by it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I've ever been repulsed by a film.
You haven't seen Wrong Turn 5. Yeah. I definitely didn't dislike it as strongly as you did. I wouldn't say I liked it. I would say I was very disappointed in it. I wasn't a huge fan of the first one. But when I heard that the second one was going to be a musical, I was really excited, actually, because to me that seemed like actually kind of an original and interesting idea to, take this existing we'll definitely
universe.
Separate it from the first one.
Yeah. It's like the originality, I think, was my biggest issue with the first one. But unfortunately, the element that I was most excited about, which is the musical, was the most disappointing part of the film by far.
I agree with you there completely.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, off the bat, that did disappoint me. I do actually quite like the ending and where they took the story. I know that's a pretty controversial opinion.
Yeah.
I guess we'll talk about it in
Well,
spoilers.
This is going to be spoiler free here, so we won't
So
go any further.
that's
We'll
all.
get back into
That's all
that.
I'll say is that.
Mike, what's your off the bat thoughts?
I slightly, and I mean very slightly, like it.
Okay.
I think it's not as bad as people are saying. Maybe that's me being like an asshole and being like, well, actually, you're all wrong. But it's a weak movie. It's definitely weak. It's overlong. It doesn't execute the point it's trying to make very well, or at least enjoyably for the audience. It gets bogged down in the law proceedings, like it's trying to be witness for the prosecution or something, when it's not. It's way too attached to the first movie and isn't really allowed to be its own movie at all. It's more like an epilogue to the first one, and every kind of major plot point is just a rehash or like a callback to what happened in the previous movie. The musical elements range from unnecessary to tonally incorrect, I would say. Like Lady Gaga is a great singer. Like Joaquin Phoenix's performance is one of the better bits of the movie. I liked the ending as well. I like the point they were trying to make, but they didn't need 2 hours, 20 minutes to make it. And they certainly didn't need like so much legal nonsense and hammering home the same points over and over again throughout the movie. Yeah, it was bad, but I don't think it's an unmitigated disaster. It just needed better editing and better choices, a few better choices, in my opinion. What about you, Joe?
Well,
You're about to spew some hatred.
Well, do you know what? I just find it a disgrace of a movie. I just think it's just everything about it to me is, we're going to be really controversial. We're not going to give... It's an anti-Joker movie within a Joker movie. We're going to make it a musical, but the music's going to just go on, and every time something comes on, the audience goes, oh, for God's sake, not another one. It's not fun to go and watch. 2 hours and 20 minutes for a wafer-thin stripped, wafer-thin... what the fucking word am I looking for? It's angered me.
Plot.
Yeah, sorry. A wafer-thin plot... 2 hours, 20 minutes when it could have been a post-credit scene in the first Joker film. I'm sorry, but the whole thing, every time anything can happen, they go the opposite direction. They subvert you so much. And the main audience, 99% of this audience that went to see the second Joker film are going to hate it. And they must have known that. To me, it's a joke.
It's deliberate.
It's deliberate.
Deliberately they did that.
It's deliberate that they've made this film as it is. But the fact is, they've made it on a budget of $200 million. $200 million. And they've just gone in and gone, yeah, fuck it, we'll do what we want. In one way, I admire that. So I'm a bit, like Joker, a bit split on this, but...
Or was he split?
At the same time, it goes against the character of Joker, or Arthur Fleck, in this is not the same person as in the first one. They've gone completely off the rocks.
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know.
It was evidently a broken man in the first one. It hammers home that point a lot harder in the second one, but I think it's still the same character. It's just we see a lot more of the Arthur than the Joker.
And that's what everyone went to the cinema to see, was more Arthur, less Joker, in a film called Joker.
Yeah, but every movie shouldn't give the audience exactly what it wants.
No, it shouldn't. But when you get something, let's say they want this to be a darling, a critical darling, rather than a commercial success. But
ideally,
they've got neither. And they've got neither out of this. It's critically panned and it's commercially panning as we speak. It sits on 33% on Rotten Tomatoes last time I checked. And it's just its cardinal sin is it's boring. I went to the cinema and I was bored.
It's very dry.
It is actually quite boring.
You can subvert me.
There's a huge segment in the middle that's just nothing happening.
And I have to say, so I was in London this week and I saw it on Friday on opening day in Leicester Square, IMAX. It wasn't an IMAX worthy film. And
it looks good. I'll say it looks
good.
But
IMAX is the experience. I'm sorry, I don't want to watch courtroom drama. I don't want to watch Judge Judy on IMAX.
Joaquin Phoenix's beautiful face.
Yeah.
What about his raspy singing voice?
Yeah. All of that. But I made a friend who was sitting next to me in London. We both looked at each other and started laughing at the film during watching it because we were like, what the hell is going on? And we were just like laughing. And I looked around, looked at the audience behind me because I was quite far down. And I burst out laughing like I was bloody Joker. Because people were just there with the dullest faces.
So there were quite a lot of people in your show.
Oh, it was huge. Like it was.
There was a lot of people when I went to see it as well. Yeah. That's why I'm really surprised that it's
I told Joe earlier, like I was the only person watching it when I went to see it. So.
It was opening night and IMAX, and everyone wanted to go and see it.
Oh right, opening night.
Yeah. It was the Friday night, the first day of its release in Leicester Square, and I was like, wow, I'm going to go and see this film in Leicester Square.
Yeah, you were at the apex of the hype.
Yeah,
and people. Like big fans of the first one presumably walked in there.
Yeah.
And Joe.
Yeah.
And I like the first one, actually.
You like it more than we do.
I do. Yeah. I do like it more than you two. But then again, I've only seen it once. It was not a film I wanted to go back to. It was just a film I wanted to watch once. And in fact, I'd probably go back to this one before I go back to the first one because I nearly went again on that weekend. And I thought, am I going to put myself through this? Because I just wanted to confirm. But
2 hours and 20 minutes wasn't enough to confirm.
I was quite tired, and to be honest, I just wanted a nap.
Well, it made me feel that way, and I wasn't tired at all. So
I'd been walking around. I did about 15 kilometers that day, and I just wanted to go and sit down and sleep somewhere before I got my train in the evening. And I thought, what better way to soothe me to sleep than this boring-ass Joker movie, which had so much more that could have been done with this. And in fact, in some ways, I disagree with that, in my own opinion. I'm arguing with myself. Because in some ways, it should just have been a standalone movie. They should have never gone back to it. And there's this idea that it had such a hugely toxic fan base going around that this had to happen. This was the movie that we deserved because there was a lot of toxic masculinity surrounding the idea of Joker and being a broken man in today's society.
Yeah, that's basically what they're fighting against.
But it's just, they've gone about it in such a ridiculous way to me.
So you're saying you like the idea, but you don't like the execution?
I don't like the execution. They've done a Jennifer's Body where they've mismarketed it completely because all of it, they've given us Harley and Joker going down the stairs, like dancing together. That's not even in the film. That doesn't happen. They don't dance down the famous Gary Glitter steps.
But would you have gone to see it if the trailer was just boring ass courtroom scenes?
No, but then I don't think they should have spent $200 million on a boring ass courtroom. What did they spend that on? Tell me what they spent that on.
It was cocaine.
The first one cost 60 million.
Rights to the music that they sang, possibly.
Oh, yeah, possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. The musical section of this. My God. This is what bugged me completely about this film, right? Musicals, they're fanatical. They can do anything. You can go anywhere. Wow, we can delve into the Joker. He doesn't have to be Arthur. It can be in his own mind. Okay, fantastic. So what do we do? Oh, I don't know. How about we have Joker on the one side of this screen. On the other side, we'll have Harley. And then they'll just sing to each other. There'll be nothing will happen. They'll just kind of sing a really boring song to each other behind the screen. I'm like, great, thank you very much. And then we go off, and it's a bit like.
But there are dream sequences where it's
like
more...
Dallas, though.
It's a bit strange.
It's like Dallas. Let's wake up after a season, and he's back alive.
Yeah.
In the shower.
One of the things I don't like is the dream sequences. That's not what I want from any kind of movie, really. So,
if it was the thing about musicals is that they aren't based in anything in reality, right? So if someone bursts out singing and then dancing showgirls come out and they all dance and chaos happens, well, that's good. Like, then you just go on, but it also develops the plot as you do that. And this doesn't do any of that. It just goes, we just snap back into reality. And as soon as that happened the first time in front of the screen, I was like, oh no, this is going to...
See, I didn't mind that use of it. It's just that later on, they stopped even doing that. They'd just randomly have a bit of singing, and then we'd be back to the
like the Naked Gun.
As if they threw them in there just for a bit of pep, and then
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought. Well, firstly, I was hoping when I heard it was a musical that they were going to keep the tone of the original movie, but when the musical sequences start, like you say, it breaks reality, and they inject all the color and everything into it. That's kind of what I was hoping from the film. And there's an early shot. And it's like a top-down shot, and you see like a bunch of umbrellas that are different colors, and I'm like, here we go,
absolutely.
But then there's nothing, and then the first few songs happen, and they're relatively grounded, and I'm like, okay, that's interesting that they're so committed to the tone of the first one that it's infecting the musical numbers. So then I was thinking while watching it that when he inevitably becomes Joker again, there's going to be a moment where he becomes Joker, and then the musical numbers
it'll be
change.
Nothing but musicals.
So
perhaps,
like a midpoint change or something, and then it would. And so I was waiting for the whole film, and was just disappointed that never happened. There was like one interesting song, which was a dream, I think, or like the segments, like Sonny and Cher segments with Lady Gaga. They were good.
But if only that were actually happening, and it wasn't in his dream. That I wanted to see him on TV with Lady Gaga doing that show. And him getting away with it in a way, and it's something to do thematically with the idea of the media and being and what makes someone famous. I feel like just
putting himself on a pedestal in the recorded court case.
Anything would have been better than what they did.
See, I don't think it's that bad.
Honestly, because after watching it, I made note of my thoughts, and then listeners, kind of went and read it and stuff. And I literally don't think I've heard a better critique of the film than what you said, Mike, actually, which is that it felt like an epilogue of the first one.
Yeah,
I've literally haven't seen it put better.
That's
than that.
The biggest complaint I have with it. Yeah.
And the problem I have is that yes, it's a response. That the movie is perceived as a response to the fans of the first film, but the actual text of the second film is exactly the same as the first film, because he was never glorified in the original film.
He wasn't.
It was idiots that misread it, and so they double down on.
It was a very small minority, I think, who saw that as a.
Yeah,
it's like a more brutal treatment of the same themes that doesn't work as well.
Okay, you didn't get it the first time. I'm going to do the same fucking thing again. Pay me triple the money, and you just have your cake and and then. But
it's almost like letting the trolls win in that scenario. To me, it's like they're letting the people who, with a very small minority, go and win this battle by having to double down so hard on it and not
clearly,
allowing any interpretation.
Yeah. Well, firstly, it's kind of insulting. And there's definitely, you get the sense that there's this kind of almost disdain for the fans in this film. And then I didn't love the first one, but it was fine, and I got it and I understood it.
Yeah, I think it's a good movie, but it's not a great movie.
But
partly because it rips off the King of Comedy so hard.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But then, I kind of felt then going to see the second film that the whole film was basically a big fuck you to everybody that liked the first one.
Yeah.
And didn't understand it. And then I felt as someone that went to see it and liked it well enough, and I think I understood it, that then the filmmakers were just insulting me for no reason. Like you say, this small number of people that are basically media illiterate and didn't get the first one or misread it or use it as an excuse.
But if you want that to be a central theme of your movie, you can make that a good movie. They didn't. It's executed so badly. It's so long, and it hammers home those themes, doesn't bring anything fresh to the table. And if they wanted to, we're not talking about the spoilerish bit, but the stuff that happens later on is a great way of saying fuck you to the audience. Yeah. But there's so much in the middle that could have been done that wasn't that. It needs more themes. It can't just be one, though. It can't just be that, would be my opinion on that. Yeah.
Yeah, more plot we needed.
Yeah.
Look at that first film. You can see elements of the musical within it when those guys on the train, who know all the lyrics to Send in the Clowns. There's that musical element there in that, and when he is coming down the stairs to Rock and Roll Part 2. But the idea of using that song specifically in the first Joker film is dark in its own right. The fact that they wouldn't have just picked it out of nowhere. They know that's a song penned by Gary Glitter, and then there's this troubled male character in Joker who dances down the steps to it. Now, you can interpret that how you like. There's an interpretation to make of the song choice, of what happens within that film. In this one, there's no interpretation of that at all.
It's not subtle.
You're given one way to look at it, and that's how you've got to be. And if you don't agree with that, well, you're probably some sort of toxic man who doesn't like. And it's this weird. I watch it, and it's like, oh, they'll get out of the prison soon. We're going to be out of the prison soon. Oh,
Yeah.
just you wait. Here we go.
We're going into the spoilers.
Are we in spoilers yet? Can we talk about spoilers?
Let's just sum it up then for this. So, yeah, we basically got in this movie Arthur Fleck institutionalized at Arkham, awaiting trial for his crimes as Joker. He's struggling with his dual identity, and those are the real big themes, isn't it? His dual identity is...
There's not a whole lot of themes.
That's not really a theme. No. That's just like... That's the major...
Well, that's the plot. That's the only plot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the theme of identity...
Sure. Anything can be a theme of identity, really, can't it?
Yeah. It's still about the theme of sensationalism. It's still about the theme of public perception of a mentally ill person and mental illness in general.
He's not mentally ill, though, is he?
I mean, he is.
I'm joking. Anyway, Arthur not only stumbles upon true love, but also finds the music that's always been inside him. What would you give it, Dave?
Out of 10? 6.
Jesus, it's too high.
6 as well. I gave it a 6 on Letterboxd.
I was getting a 3 from me.
3, man.
That's way too low.
It's not too low.
It's better than most DC movies.
I don't give a shit.
Whoa.
It is, and those aren't even 3s. Yeah,
they're all 1s.
You haven't seen enough bad movies, man.
I have seen a lot.
Son of the Mask.
Am I not
is it as bad as Son of the Mask?
Yes.
No, it isn't.
At least Son of the Mask, something happens.
You can't,
but what happens?
You can't give any film with Joaquin and Gallagher as well, but Joaquin's performance. You can't give a film with.
No,
he was better in this than the first one.
No, he gets a star,
and it's directed well. And the writing is fine if
there were any.
Yeah.
But sorry, they only did one page.
It's all, some of the prison scenes are all right as well with the
the guard is good. He's good.
Yeah.
And I'll give a special shout out to Lee Gill. His little...
Is that Puddle?
Yeah, Puddle.
Oh, yeah, I want to talk about that.
Oh, yeah, that's quite a good scene, yeah.
You can't give a 3 out of 10 to any film with just that scene.
Okay, I'm giving a 1 star for Joaquin Phoenix.
What?
Lee Gill gets another one. And Lady Gaga gets one because I think she was fine.
Yeah.
So, there's my
criminally underused and basically wasted, but...
Yeah, let's pay for... That's where the 200 million goes. Let's get Lady Gaga. Oh, let's do a musical with Lady Gaga.
There's also been much worse movies with that kind of budget as well. It's way better than Transformers 6.
I
with
don't
Marky
care.
Mark.
But at least something happens in Transformers 6. I'm sure there's not just one place they go.
Well, I guess.
Well,
But
Joker had an interesting idea, like
yeah, on paper,
yeah.
it's
And that's what
okay.
disgusts me the most about it, is that these people are meant to be paid millions of dollars. They're paid millions of dollars to come up with a good idea and be good at their job.
But they did
And
come up with a
did.
good idea. They just
And they executed it.
chat all over it when they made it. It would have been a lot better. I come back to you that I asked about spoilers for. It would have been a lot better movie if they cut the law stuff, the legal court proceeding stuff, way earlier.
Yes.
And had a lot more time devoted
Do you
to
know-
after the explosion and him being
The legal
outside.
the legal stuff could have been at the beginning of the movie. That's where I feel that goes.
Two
That's
scenes.
That's a 10-minute
Yeah.
opening to the film of him
Yeah.
being either acquitted because he's mentally unwell, or he's guilty and breaks out
No,
before
but
he's given the
if
death
they want to make a
penalty.
big circumstance about the court, that could be decent, but it doesn't sustain.
No, well, there's
An
not.
hour and a
there's
half.
no. It's like the whole plot is, does he have multiple personalities? That's the whole thing, and every single witness, every single scene, is in aid of that exact point, right? To the point that like they're basically.
But I'm not sure the movie's trying to explore that. It's more interested in what other people's takes on that. It's not trying to tell you either way. I don't think anyway whether he has this split personality or not.
No, but,
it's more interested
every
in
single witness except Puddle, and that scene was amazing. What's his name? The character's name? Gary Puddle. Gary Puddles, something like that.
It's something like that.
something
Yeah.
Puddles. I only remember the Puddles.
Yeah.
bit.
Puddles.
Every single
See,
witness.
you enjoyed that bit.
Of course I did. That's where it gets a star.
There was zero. Zero was on the table.
Look at that smile. That's a 0-star smile. Anyway,
I was looking
Not a
at
valid
Gary Puddles.
rating.
because every single witness is like, I don't believe. You know, I
I
believe
don't
he's-
believe it. Like that.
I don't believe that there's multiple personalities. I'm like, okay, we get it. So they could have had like one witness to say that. They could have got Gary Puddles in earlier and done that. I mean, the problem is that like that scene in particular is like the instigation for like the final acts, right? That and another thing, which I guess we'll talk about in a second. But
We are in spoilers.
oh yeah, okay, okay. So yeah, they raped the Joker out of him, right? That's what everyone's saying.
Yeah. Well, it's kind
Yeah.
of implied, but yeah, it seems that way. I mean, they
I mean-
undressed him and put him on the floor.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. No,
yeah.
just to beat him. Yeah. I mean, you can interpret it how you like, but I mean, I saw it as a sexual assault.
It was definitely, well, in my mind, it was definitely a sexual assault.
Yeah. So I mean, that was kind of unnecessary in my opinion, because
Yeah.
I felt that the previous scene in the courtroom was like the inciting incident for him to then look inward, right?
It's
and
a
then
jarring bit of brutality when you haven't seen much brutality outside of dream sequences in the entire rest of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't you know, like, it doesn't add anything at all. You know, I got nothing against brutality, and even if it was the only instance in the reality of the story, that would be fine as well. In fact, it would be more impactful if, you know, it was used to make him make a change. But I got the sense that it was him, in my opinion, talking to Gary in that scene and like cracking in that scene.
Yeah.
Because
They kind of do it twice. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like he plays like he was playing into the Joker persona in that scene. By the way, that worst judge ever, like just letting him intimidate the witness like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's playing
Like
into Joker.
Judge
but,
Judying it.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
Judge-
But I got the
Just in IMAX.
yeah.
Mm.
And they should release it in IMAX though. Judge Judy, that would be amazing. But for me, like just watching his performance, I felt that the crack, like Arthur Fleck was coming through the cracks in that scene.
Yeah.
And honestly, they could have cut the sexual assault out, and that would have for me been enough to be convinced. And
Yeah.
for
But
him to-
maybe it's like a symptom of them ditching subtlety in every way they can. So they added a subtle change, and then to hammer it home for laymen, they put in the brutal, obvious change.
I mean, like the way that scene in the courtroom is directed, like it's like the centerpiece of the whole film. Like for me, it's the one standout scene in my opinion. Right? It's
It's a good scene.
yeah.
It's the best scene there is in
Yeah,
the film.
yeah.
But the idea of this for me, the courtroom stuff was just boring. It was just so boring.
Yeah.
It was quite a slog.
And I was just like, and then they want me to care. Like the way they're going on about this is like I should be enthralled by this, like it's O.J. Simpson who might go down, and it's just not. It's just shit. It just doesn't. They don't pull it off. Like, and this is why I said they could have shortened it by an hour. They could have shortened that whole bit. Something could have happened. Actually, God forbid anything happened in this film.
Yeah, they should have got him out of Arkham sooner. That either he could have been acquitted, which would have been interesting, especially then if... Did they show the Sonny and Cher scenes in the trailers, do you know? Because I don't know.
Who knows?
But I wouldn't know.
But if they, if they'd have put that in the trailers, it would have been interesting, like you said, right? If like the celebrity that you already had before the courtroom, and then he gets acquitted, then he literally just becomes a television personality, and then from there something happens, and he becomes.
And then it's a standalone movie. It's its own thing. Then
literally anything is more interesting than what we got, really.
Yeah.
Because it didn't do anything. The movie, as you said, doesn't stand on its own two legs. It doesn't do a thing. It's
Apart from the ending, though, if they'd pulled that ending and made it half of the movie, I could have feasibly thought about giving it a 7.
Go on, let's go into the last part of the movie then.
Yeah.
Give us your thoughts on it, Mike.
I like it. I think it's one of the best bits of the movie.
Why?
Because it's finally actually the end point of the idea they're trying to make.
Yeah.
And they put the effort into actually making that good and slammed home.
What
in a good
idea
way.
are they doing? What's going on?
That he's a mentally ill man that created something that is a part of his illness, and people are putting him on a pedestal or politicalizing what he's done, and then maybe off the back of that, people are gonna do something, become the Joker, but that's not him.
Yeah,
he's created the idea, and other people have ran with it. He's just an ill person that needs help. He's a victim. That's the idea, and I like that.
And I agree with you completely there, Mike. And that was also the point of the first film, in my opinion, right?
Yeah,
that's
and much more subtle, but it was there. Yeah.
And I agree. Like it for me, like I say, it was how I read the first film, and so for me, felt like a logical conclusion to the story. Was that he, and I actually found it very interesting. That he, and because I didn't expect it, that he actually then basically denounced Joker, owned up to everything.
Yeah. Fully became Arthur Fleck.
Yeah. And I thought that was actually kind of a brave decision.
Yeah, had the chance to be the Joker, was being busted out by his Joker mates, and shunned that completely.
Yeah.
And that's quite a powerful.
Yeah, and it also parallels
bit of the movie,
the first film, if I remember right, because there's a bit with like Joker fanatics in the first film, right, when they save him in like a riot.
Yeah, I think I vaguely remember. Yeah.
But this time he rejects it, and I think it's that's actually clever. They're paralleling the first film, but showing that through that there's actual growth, and he's actually changed. And it's actually interesting, and it's the only time it justifies it being a sequel, because they actually parallel that scene, and I guess they could have combined them both into one, but
he's rejecting basically. Like the chance of being someone to someone else when it's kind of artificial and not who he is and not who he wants to be. I think it's quite that last, like, I don't know how long it is, 20 minutes, 30 minutes is one of the only good bits of the movie, in my opinion. And and the end as well, where he's killed by someone that may or may not be the actual Joker in DC.
It's also not that important, right? Like who would actually, whether or not it's
but it doesn't matter whether he's a follower or whatever.
Yeah.
It's a good point, well told, and I wish the rest of the movie was as well told, or even a good point, really. Had more points to tell. You hate it. You're about to.
Well, I'm just getting angry as you're talking.
Yeah.
I mean, there was like there was a lot of like kind of DC fan service at the end, right? As well, like Harvey Dent got burnt. Like was another thing.
I could have done without
hardly,
all
though.
of the Harvey Dent shit. We didn't need that.
He was such
in
there. a non-presence.
He was
like,
a weak
character.
character.
He wasn't Harvey Dent, and I'd forgotten by the time that he got a burnt face that he was Harvey Dent.
Also
he was not Harvey Dent.
It's also so weirdly shoved in there in a movie that really doesn't really want to be about Batman or have anything to do.
Yeah, the first one was a standalone movie, and this should have been as well.
Well, actually, I don't know about that. Like,
no, because
the
you do
first film
see
is very Bruce Wayne is in it, but it's very much about Thomas Wayne, This is actually another interesting thing, right? Like, because the setting, like, yeah, because of Bruce Wayne being young, like, it's another little clue, again, in the first film, was already there, that this is not the Joker he's not going to be battling Batman when he's in his 60s.
Yeah.
So it's another clue that it's not that Joker.
Yeah.
And also, another thing I noticed in the second one, is that Harley Quinn doesn't have a PhD yet, as well, because she's Joker's psychotherapist. That's her origin, right? In the animated show. But in this, she's just
usual.
In this, they specifically made her she's still a medical student, right? And I'm like, interesting. Like, and so yeah, like the implication is right that she will
eventually find the
Joker.
Joker.
Will find the Joker, or she will find another candidate Joker, and then she will coach him. Maybe, let's say,
and I don't mind that kind of DC plugging into stuff because it's subtle, but the Harvey Dent stuff is in.
No, it's just something.
It's right there, and it's irrelevant. Yeah.
Anyway, what do you think about the ending then, Joe?
It's just spitting and shitting all over everything.
But that's what I thought about the hour preceding it, and I was on board with the ending.
Nothing happens for 2 hours, and then all of a sudden there's a big explosion, and there we go. He gets out, and then he basically, as you say, he rejects it. He gets killed. End of movie. And I'm like, could have done that in an hour, couldn't you? You could have just done that. There is an interest. There is potentially an interesting.
So it doesn't sound like you hate the ending.
That sounds more like you hate the second
movie.
Yeah.
No, I don't actually like that story though. There's an interesting film there to be made, but it's not a film for me. Right?
Fair enough.
For me, I just want to see. I want a superhero film to not hammer home some serious fucking point every second of its existence.
Yeah, but if you judge it on its own merits, the thing it's trying to present, the ending is strong and the middle is weak.
Yeah, but the ending
You may not like the point it's trying to push to you, but at least it's pushing it at the end.
And also, if you wanted a superhero movie like that, then why did you like the first one so much?
Because it was leading somewhere, and this did nothing. It didn't lead anywhere. It is a dead end. It is a cul-de-sac of a movie. Like, you drive down the road and there's nothing at the end. It's just some houses.
But that is the point.
Make it to you. Okay, well, Tammy, is that good? $200 million? Have they?
You're focused on the.
I am
price,
because
man.
I find
it is enraging that amount of money that they use.
Yeah, but that's just usual for blockbusters.
It's not a blockbuster film though. It's disguised. It's an independent little indie film disguised as something.
Yeah, and they used to do that shit all the time in the 70s. They'd give auteur directors huge budgets. They'd blow it on crazy shenanigans, and the movie wouldn't be good at the end. It's a tale as old as
it's like any John Belushi
film. Yeah,
as old as 1960.
Yeah, there's a Michael. I forget what his Days of something, but he went so over budget on like moving trees. He liked a tree.
Who's this Michael who?
Michael Ciermo or something.
Well, the Deer Hunter guy.
Yeah, maybe.
Cimino.
Cimino, yeah. Or Cimino, whatever it is.
Maybe it might be Cimino.
And there's a movie called Something of Something. I haven't seen it. I can't remember. But yeah, he wasted huge amounts of budget moving trees. There was a street that was built in the production, and he wanted it narrowed, the street, for some shots. But he specifically asked for both sides to be moved in 6 inches.
Yeah.
Rather than just moving one side in 12 inches or whatever. This kind of like ridiculous like wastes of money has happened time and time again in Hollywood. So I'm willing to let that, because it's not my money. It's shitty studios' money, so they can spend their money on whatever the fuck they want, and if they lose money, I'm happy with it. That's fine. But if you're saying for that amount of money you want a good movie, yes.
It is pretentious drivel. That's all it is. It's for people who do really want to look into it really hard and see that there is something there. And I don't want that from that. Like, it should it's trying to spell out something too hard. The director hates his own creation. Well, I'm sorry, mate. It's bigger than you at this point. Your creation is much bigger than what you expected. So you want to stuff it back into the box, but the box is burst. If there's people out there who see Joker in a certain way and it's toxic, that is an interesting thing to happen, because that means that is actually there. That is real. And you cannot just shut that out. You have to face that full on, head on. Otherwise, it just gets worse. All this film is going to do is make that shit worse. You're not addressing the issue of toxic masculinity by trying to go, oh, we hate you, and it just makes the situation worse. By being this anti-Joker film, they're just creating something much bigger, like this idea of these superhero films going woke. Like those people who talk like that about films, they've just got more ammunition because of a film like this.
But I think that's an execution problem rather than an idea problem.
No, I don't like the idea. I hate the idea of him being nothing, right?
Because a lot of people have compared it to The Matrix Resurrections, right? Which is another...
That's just shit.
Yes, that is also shit. But it has some redeeming elements. But like, again, it's another anti-sequel where it's as if the directors didn't want to make another movie and they had to make another movie, and they're kind of
these films
giving a fuck
these
you
films
to the
are
studio
bigger.
Or the audience.
These films are bigger than those creators now, and what I liked,
they're still the people that created it, and they can make what they want as far as I'm concerned.
they can, and then they have to deal with someone like me who wants to fucking
and you can and you have the freedom to hate it as well. Yeah,
but I don't like the idea of this pretentious idea of the ending. It is too much of this. We sit there for 2 hours hoping that something is going to happen, and when it does the exact opposite. And I was laughing at it at the end because I just didn't like the idea of it. It didn't do anything at all for me, and it's going to do nothing for 90-something% of people out there. I like the idea of it being a musical. I really like that, and a lot of people, their criticism of it is that it is a musical. However, I can always guarantee most of those people, if they actually pulled it off and did a good job and they knew what a musical was, and they put all their effort into making that aspect of it actually work, it would have been quite good. And so I think this is...
No, a musical is just a genre. And there's been musicals about... Like, I love Cry Baby by John Waters and Repo, the Genetic Opera.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of musicals that aren't anything like, Singing in the Rain. You can make a musical out of anything.
You can, but they did it...
But they did it badly.
They've just done it badly.
They executed it badly.
They've executed everything they've executed. Maybe I wouldn't hate the premise so much if they'd have executed it differently. Or if they would have specifically said... There's a lot of annoyance from me because the way they've sort of marketed this film is completely wrong, and they've subverted that expectation completely of what it had the potential to be. So you go in there with this preconceived notion of what you're going to watch, and perhaps you two didn't do that because you don't really watch trailers. But,
correct. Yeah.
Watching that trailer made it look like it was going to be totally different to what it was.
I think it might be a different way of approaching movies, because I never go into a movie expecting, or specifically expecting something. Yeah, but I want them to show me what they want to show me, and I'll enjoy it. But
I don't want it to be associated with superheroes. Then I just don't think using superheroes in such a way is interesting. But they didn't say that when they were coming up with this film. They didn't do that.
Yeah, I can't speak on the marketing. I usually hate the marketing for almost every movie.
Yeah. Almost always miss the point. Yeah.
It's always a piece of shit. I mean, we talked about that in Jennifer's Body, which is why I don't watch trailers, because they'll often lie to you or spoil things for you, or just in general be the worst possible. You're better off talking to a friend that's seen it than watching the trailer to get a gauge of what this movie is and whether I want to see it. And if it did lie to you, then that's the marketing's point of view, and maybe that's partially why people are really hating on it rather than me just what I do, which is like, it's not very good. But I'm not hating on it. People don't like being lied to. So if I was advertised a horror movie and I went in and it wasn't a horror movie, I'd probably be kind of annoyed. So, I mean, we discussed it in Jennifer's Body as well, right? Marketing plays a big part in these big box office bombs where it advertises a certain thing, a subsection goes to see it, tells everybody else it's not that thing, and they're pissed off because it wasn't that thing, and they're the people that were most excited to see that thing,
just kill it,
and it kills the hype of the movie. So,
did you find yourself going through it then, Mike? So you came in with no expectation, but then were you kind of watching it, and then you had any kind of like expectation about where it was going, or do you kind of keep your mind blank?
I couldn't exactly see where it was going, but I knew thematically where it was going. It just didn't seem to be going there for the majority of the runtime, which is what I found the biggest flaw. I didn't guess that he'd be killed at the end, but it was pretty clear to me that he wasn't the Joker. So something was going to happen. He'd possibly reject it. Maybe they'd do a terrible, because I had heard there's like DC universe stuff spilling in. So I thought maybe there'd be an after credit scene or something that teased the new Joker or something.
I'm glad they didn't do that.
Yeah, that would have been worse.
Is kind of what we got. It just was before the credits.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
But again, it's ambiguous whether it is the Joker or isn't the Joker.
Well, they're not doing another one anyway.
No.
They're not going anywhere near this again.
No. Yeah, and James Gunn has been like adamant that it's not part of the DCEU as well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh, the new
but if it had been critically and commercially acclaimed like the first one is, he would have. Maybe. Would have made it canon, I imagine.
I don't know.
I don't think that Joaquin Phoenix's range has been explored enough in this film. I think there's such a good character in there to have that. That's one of the biggest sins for me, is that he's such a good character, and it's so well played, and what he does with his body, the way he like was able to move his body, and he loses weight for the role and everything. And I love that. I love this idea of this darker Joker character who doesn't necessarily have to be Joker, but it's dark and it's different and it's unusual. And you see this on the screen, you go, yeah, this is cool. And then they just go for a whole film going, actually, he isn't any of that. And it's like, well...
I actually think they used Joaquin Phoenix pretty well, to be honest with you. I felt that he actually was able to show a bit more range in this. And yes, I know, I'm
not saying that. I think he did well with what he had. Don't get me wrong. I think he did very well. He's one of the highlights of this film. He's one of the only highlights for me of this film. But it's just, there's so much that they could have made this a character that could live and breathe on and do something else. And it's just not. This is why I just think they should have just left it a standalone movie.
But it is about the death of this broken man. So to a certain extent, it is...
They spent far too long on it.
Yeah, well, that's my biggest argument. Yeah, I agree with that.
That's not. I just don't like it. I just don't like it.
Fair enough. I don't think I'm gonna go on record as saying I like it either. I don't think you would either. But
no.
I like the idea. My argument is
I have a theory that this.
If there's a director's cut that's an hour and a half, maybe that would be a decent
it's
movie.
Gonna be shorter.
Yeah.
Well, like a fan edit.
Yeah, maybe a fan edit. I have a feeling this is going to be looked back on quite fondly. That I just have a feeling about that. You know how like cult movies go sometimes, especially big flops.
I did think that because I had a lot of
people are going to reevaluate it in a.
Yeah, well, I like John Carter, and that's one of the biggest flops of all time.
Yeah.
So
I had a lot of feelings, and one part I'm going, this is genius, and another I'm going, I hate this. And they both live and breathe within me, these ideas of it being good, but also very, very bad. So I can see that maybe one day it becomes a cult film and it becomes cool and something is like, whoa, do you see how it subverted everything? A bit like how we've seen a resurgence once it found its audience, Jennifer's Body, or like how Metal Gear Solid 2 perhaps is one of the best of the franchise. It's right up there. But because of how they presented it before, it at the time was a bit controversial.
It is not on the level of Metal Gear Solid 2.
But you're saying it's going to come back as a resurgence and be... So the only way it does that, if it finds this really interested audience, which means it has to be seen in some sort of genius level.
There's a lot of people I follow on Letterboxd that think it's better than the first one. So there are a lot.
Yeah,
I don't know how many.
I've heard people say that too. Yeah, like I've also. I think really what I hear, like, you know, when you feel right, the kind of majority they say they just hate it and it's shit. And what I do hear is that, you know, they think it's objectively worse, like as a piece of media than the first one, but much more interesting. And so that they're much more inclined, if they're relatively indifferent about the first one, they're much more inclined to come back to number 2 than to number 1. And it's those kind of people that I'm thinking of. But like,
and maybe that's a lot easier when you don't have any positive attachment to the first one in the first place.
Yeah,
if it's attacking something you didn't.
Yeah,
you don't give a shit
I mean
about
that's me.
attacked.
Like, I mean, I was planning to rewatch Joker and just haven't done it, and it's been like 5 years now, and I didn't watch it in preparation for 2 either. But it's very possible, you know, that I'll come back and watch Joker 2 again before watching Joker 1, just as a kind of an interesting, just because it's a bit more interesting, and maybe, you know, especially going in with...
It has its own identity. The identity isn't great, but it has its own identity in that it's not just lifting, you know, another movie.
I think it will struggle because it's 2 hours, 20 minutes, and I think most people will go...
Well, the advantage is you can fast forward when you're rewatching.
Yeah, but I just feel like people who want to go back to it might just go, 2 hours, 20 minutes. I'll eat my words, I don't really care, like whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, you know...
I think in the grand scheme of things, it's an overreaction, purely because I watched Aquaman 2 like a month ago, and that's a piece of shit. So...
Whoa, is it?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is,
I
man.
haven't seen it.
It's not horror. Well, Joker's not really horror related, and Aquaman 2 definitely isn't. Aquaman 2 is a piece of shit.
No.
So it's like at least twice as good as Aquaman 2. So in the grand scheme of things, this isn't DC's like worst kept secret. It's actually one of the better DC movies, if we're going to include it in those.
Well, that's just a...
But it's a bit of a cesspool of bad movies anyway.
DC's just shit, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Like the actual...
James Gunn's in now. He's good.
He's all right.
Suicide Squad.
Oh,
I mean,
Suicide Squad was
the
really
Suicide
good.
Squad.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah.
And Peacemaker.
Yeah, Peacemaker's great as well.
Yeah. We got anything else to say?
No.
I think so.
Shall we wrap it up?
It's just the dejected face of Joe.
He's going to have no energy for the next one.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up.
Yeah,
Wow.
Joker, bye.
Bye. Oh, fuck's sake.